A big thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this week's video. If you need a website or a domain, go to squarespace.com/James for 10% off your first purchase. Hello everybody, and welcome to the middle of the Greenland Sea. I don't know that it's exactly the middle, but somewhere around there. I'm pretending to be the watch for the ship. As you can see, it's quite foggy, lots of icebergs around here, so I'm trying to work out if I have the attention span to do that job. It's not looking good, to be honest. I keep going downstairs for these cookies. Although I suppose the bigger problem is that I'm not at the front of the boat. Right, what am I doing on a ship in the Greenland Sea? I'll tell you. If you watched the last video, you'll remember that I was in Longyearbyen, the most northern town in the world, on Svalbard. And from there, we boarded this ship, the Sylvia Earle, the brand new Sylvia Earle. I think she's only done about half a dozen voyages. And I boarded this ship with Nigel and Mass. And basically we're doing a recce for a trip that we're doing next year, and we're gonna run it as a workshop. And if you're interested in that trip or that workshop, then links in the description. But yeah, in this video, what I want to do is show you what happened in Svalbard on this trip. And full disclosure, bit of bad news, I'm going to be closing down this YouTube channel soon because David Attenborough himself has reached out personally to me because he wants me to be a camera operator on his next TV project, which is quite sad for this YouTube channel. But I think when I show you this footage, you'll understand why he's so keen to have me on board. Right, I've put my coat on, but no shoes. There's no time because there's a polar bear over there, our first one. It's proving a little bit tricky to film and photograph from a ship because even though the ship is anchored, it's still moving. So makes for quite a cinematic B-roll really, because there's some motion. But yeah, 400mm, it's quite tricky, especially if you're as unskilled as I am. Nigel's just behind there in his cabin. Can you wave?
Hello.
You sounded like a polar bear then. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you'll know that wildlife photography is not massively high on my list, to be honest, but I have wanted to see a polar bear for years. Since when I first went to Greenland 5, 6, 7 years ago, whatever it was. And it's been worth the wait, I would say. I like wildlife, don't get me wrong, I do like wildlife, but I've never had an experience before where an animal has taken my breath away like the polar bear did. And this one wasn't a particularly good encounter for me, photographically at least. At 400mm, it's still way too small in the frame, and I can crop because I've got 60 megapixels, but I still didn't nail a photo, but that didn't really matter to me. I just loved looking at it and thinking, that is a polar bear, a marine mammal that can swim hundreds of miles. Yeah, and we were really lucky with our time in Svalbard to see a couple more bears as well. One of them on the sea ice, and that again was quite a long way away, but to see it swimming and climbing on the ice was just incredible. But the best encounter we had by far was on our final afternoon in Svalbard, where we saw a big male. Now, we really weren't that far away from him, and he came to the top of a rock just off of an island, and I got some shots that I'm really, really happy with. I'd kind of hoped that visiting Svalbard we would see polar bears because it's the place in the world with the highest density of them, but even so, I still feel very lucky that we actually did. So yeah, some of my favourite moments of the trip so far, but probably not my favourite photos. I mean, there's absolutely no way that you can see this on the horizon, but we are currently approaching the third biggest ice cap in the world after Antarctica and Greenland. And it just looks like a wall of ice. It's so impressive. And as you can probably see, we're getting into thicker sea ice as well. It's very exciting. I'm just hopeful that there's a big polar bear on one of the patches. That ice cap was pretty cool. It's always the scale of these things in the polar regions that mesmerises me. That was 160 kilometres long, 18 metres high, and full of waterfalls and wildlife. And we had an amazing Zodiac cruise, spotted birds, a big friendly walrus. But I think my favourite photo is probably this one, and I think it's because of the ambiguity in scale. I mean, I was there, and I'm struggling to remember how big that iceberg is. And it's the sort of thing that looks like it could be 50 metres high, but I think it's more like 2 metres high. Can we just pop back just a tiny bit, just so I can get a straight on shot with that tiny little bit of ice in the middle? Perfect, thank you. But like I say, even though I was there, it is difficult to remember and get a handle on. And there's really very little there to be able to correctly judge scale. Then I like that. But yeah, so far, aside from the huts, I think this photo is my favourite from the trip. And there's nothing man-made here. Oh, I also like these barrels. These were from a different spot when we went on a big, long walk on day one. But these are from World War II, when a weather station was being set up on Svalbard. Can you imagine trying to set up a weather station back then on Svalbard? Not for me. Well, we're on to what I think is about plan D today. And I say today for the whole trip as well. Basically, there's lots of ice off the coast of Greenland, which is affecting where we're going to go. I think we're going to head down to Jan Mayen, which is a bit of a result because I've wanted to go there for a long, long time. But for today, we've had to come to this place because, well, there was fog at our plan A, which is problematic when you need to do a scout of a landing area to see if there are polar bears. So we've come here instead, which is a pretty good plan B, I think, or D. There were a few options yesterday, and yeah, it's a great thing about having guides that know the area so well. Also, as is pretty much customary for trips I do like this, it's always the huts that catch my attention the most. I end up thinking, what were they like to use or live in or stay in? Somewhere as barren and desolate as this, nearly 80 degrees north. Do you remember, about 6 months ago, I think, I made a video on my channel which was a rant really about 2 new cameras, and one of those cameras was the Sony A7R Mark V. And the reason I was ranting about it was because of what Sony calls AI autofocus. And basically, I feel like we're getting to a point with new cameras where they're impeding on the engagement and therefore the enjoyment of the photographer. The camera's just basically doing it all for you now. Anyway, here is my Sony A7R Mark V. What a hypocrite. Yeah, I bought this because I love the output from the Sony A7R Mark IV as far as stills go, And this one also shoots 10-bit video. That probably sounds like me trying to convince you that I did the right thing buying a new camera. But what that actually is me trying to convince me. Because I don't need 61 megapixels. I didn't need it in my previous body. I don't need it in my new body. I also don't need 10-bit colour. You've seen my filmmaking skills. But I seem incapable of stopping myself from convincing myself that I need these things. So yes, welcome to the family, another technically phenomenal camera that I get absolutely zero joy from using. Anyway, my nonsense and gas aside, I hope you enjoyed this video. I certainly had fun making it. We're very excited about the trip to Svalbard next year. Again, details in the description. And a big thank you to the sponsor of this week's video, Squarespace. And I've already begun sticking some of the images from this trip on my website. And luckily, my website is so simple to use that even somebody who thinks they need 61 megapixels can use it. So I use my website primarily as my portfolio, and adding photos couldn't be simpler because Squarespace takes care of all the resizing to make sure the photos look great on any device, and ultimately it just means that I've got somewhere online that I control entirely that I can send people to take a look at my best work. And I think that is crucial for all photographers. So whether you would like a portfolio or whether you want an online store, somewhere for a blog, maybe you want to send newsletters out, whatever it is, Squarespace has got you covered. And if you'd like to start a free trial, just go to squarespace.com. And after that, if you'd like to make a purchase, just go to squarespace.com/James and you'll get 10% off that first purchase. And a big thank you to Squarespace for their continued support of this channel, and thank you to you for watching.